Dennis is an award-winning director. He has created, produced, and directed thousands of hours of television programming and feature films. Among his comedy credits are Barney Miller, Fish, and Alice. He received an Emmy for outstanding direction on the #1 daytime drama, The Young and the Restless. My fabulous friend has also done magic producing Disney series The Mickey Mouse Club. Dennis, thank you so much for being here with us today. I think one of the best things is being able to speak with other successful business owners and people who have a lot of experience and wealth of knowledge, to be able to share that with other people who are trying to get in the business and start their own thing. So I appreciate you spending time with us today.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Okay, so I want to go ahead and delve right into it. How did you even get started in this industry?
Well, it's a funny story, actually. When I was in college, I was a physics major.
Okay.
And one of the things that I always did in high school, I loved the theater, and so I was always backstage in the theater running the lights and building sets and, you know, all those kind of things. And we had a summer stock theater in the small town I grew up in, Warren, Ohio. We had a summer stock theater that was actually quite popular. People came from all over 3-4 states to go there in the summer. And my uncle was the person that created the entire electrical system for the building that the theater was in. So he became friends with the producer called John Kenley, who's passed away. But John would allow me to go in as a teenager. I would go into this professional theater. We had all big stars coming into this theater. So I had a love for the theater, and when I went to college as a physics major, I wasn't in the theater department. I had no interest in the theater department, and all of a sudden, one day there was an opportunity where I wanted to earn some extra money, and the guy that I was working with at the time, he said, well, if you want to earn some extra money, why don't you work for the television station? I thought, okay, I can probably do that, but I know nothing about how to run a camera, how to run audio. I didn't know any of that.
Right.
He said, oh, no, they teach you. I said, okay. So I went over and they taught me how to be a videotape operator in the beginning, then a camera operator, then an audio man. At the end of my first year in college, I decided, you know, I like this better than I do physics.
Wow.
Changed majors.
Wow.
So that's what got me started, and by the time I was in the program for, by the middle of my junior year, I was actually directing television programming on the channel.
Wow, that's
impressive. We had an on-the-air television station and 2 on-the-air radio stations, as well as the theater department. They were all lumped together. The theater, radio, television, and film was all lumped together in one big school. So that's how I got started.
That's impressive. And so from there, how did you get out into doing all the wonderful things? I mean, how did you put your face out there and get attention in order to get where you've been?
A lot of it's luck, and a lot of it's, I mean, obviously, you know, at some point you have to have talent, but, but a lot of it is luck. And in my case, my mother, there was an old television show which no one's going to remember called The Mike Douglas Show. It was based out of Cleveland, Ohio. My mother went to see the show one time, to be in the studio audience, and there was this guy running around the stage, and he seemed to be important, so she, very unlike my mother, you'd have to know my mother to realize how out of character this is, but she went to this guy and said, or grabbed him by the arm and said, you know, my son is studying to do television in college. And he looked at her and he said, really? He pulled out a business card and he handed it to her and he said, have him come and see me. Well, it turned out it was the executive producer of the show, Woody Frazier.
Wow.
Woody gave me my first job and my second job out of college. So he became a very important person in my life, but it was strictly out of luck. I interned on the show before he hired me, but yeah, it was strictly luck.
You know, that's funny because I know my son, which you know very well, Julian, he's into doing those type of things, and I would be the first person to talk to somebody to help get him attention.
Absolutely.
But I think it's luck, but at the same time, if your mom had not taken that step to introduce herself to somebody, you would never know where you could be, where somebody can help you, hold your hand down that road. So
exactly.
It's important to speak to people and get their attention and let them know this is what I'm doing. You just never know. They may need you at that moment.
Well, it's also a very good case for the mentor programs
Right.
that are around the country, because the mentor programs are designed to work with a professional, somebody who's
Yeah.
already there or has been there, to create more knowledge, but
Right.
also get in certain doors that you wouldn't be able to get into normally.
Right.
And that's in all fields, in all businesses, mentor programs and internship programs are huge
Yes.
benefit. I've over the years I've worked with interns and mentored, and it's interesting because a lot of people that are coming up in their careers or early in their careers, they'll say, well, why would I want to do that? Sometimes you don't get paid.
Right. Right.
And I say, well, you're meeting new people.
Right.
I had a very interesting experience in an acting class that I did in Los Angeles one time. I was teaching a group of actors, and there was an actor in the class that said that he would not want to be an extra.
Okay.
And I said, well, why would you not want to be an extra? And he said, well, it's demeaning. There's no lines. They just push you around the set, and you don't really get to. And I said, excuse me. I said, let me tell you a story, true story. I was working on The Young and the Restless as director, and there was a young lady that was an extra on the show, and I told this to the whole class, and she came in. She was an extra for one day. Well, the way our show worked at the time was the executive producer, head writer, owner of the show, Bill Bell, was based in Chicago, Illinois. And so we would finish the shows in Los Angeles, and we would send all the shows out. Before they aired, we would send them all out. And the producers of the show got a call one day saying, there's this girl that was this extra. She said, can she act? And nobody even knew who she was, because she was a walk-in. And so they found her again, and they brought her in for an audition, and they sent Bill the audition tape. At the end of the day, he wrote a 2-year storyline around this girl.
Oh my goodness. That's amazing.
Because he liked what he saw when she was on the screen. She would have never gotten that opportunity had she not come in and been an extra.
Wow.
So those are the kind of opportunities that you have to take in life.
Right.
Whatever the business is, you must take those opportunities. Right. Otherwise, you don't meet the right people that you're going to need to further your career.
Yeah, that's good advice. I mean, with any business, it doesn't matter what business that is, you have to be flexible and willing to be there, be available, even if you're not getting paid all the money that you want in the beginning, because you're learning. And you're meeting people, and that's an investment in itself.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that's good. That's a great story. I hope that happens to Julian, my son. So one of the other questions I wanted to ask you, in your business, and like we said, a lot of times some of these basics cross lines into different businesses, because at the end of the day, whether you're doing legal nurse consulting like I do, or you own a facility, or you're producing, business is business. Can you think of maybe 3 characteristics that are necessary to have when you're dealing with challenges in having a business or trying to start a business or being on your own in the industry that you're working in?
Creating a business from scratch is, as we've talked before off camera, a very difficult situation.
Yes.
First of all, you have to have, you have to do your homework.
Yes.
No business gets created unless it's a total fluke, unless you have really done your homework, know what you're trying to do. If it's a product you're trying to sell, what's your competition? If it's a internet site, not only what your competition is, but there's a term that is used in that particular business, which is a business that I attempted to start, but there's a thing called barrier to entry. In other words, if you have something that is very easily captured by someone else, it might not be as valuable as something that is really unique, that is much harder to get to restart.
Right.
So if you're trying to create a business that is easily built by anyone, then it is a much less valuable commodity than if you have something that is really difficult to rebuild if you have to start from square one.
Right.
So those are knowing about your business that you're trying to begin, knowing what the barriers to entry for other people to copy you is a huge factor. And then I guess the biggest factor is you've got to stay with it long enough to make sure that it succeeds. So the idea of having staying with you must stay with a business long enough to make sure it's successful.
Right.
Perfect example of that is Apple. Steve Jobs actually gave up on Apple in a way. I mean, Apple was a business that they had the iMac and they had different products, but they really weren't hugely successful. They were a niche product.
Right, right.
And Steve Jobs says, you know what, I'm going to make this a better company. He came back into the company. When he came back into the company is when the phones were invented, the iPad was invented, all of those elements that have become extremely successful and has now made the only $1 trillion company that has ever been built in the history of the world.
Amazing.
They just turned $1 trillion. Their net worth or their value of the company is now $1 trillion as of last Friday. And it's the only company that's ever reached that milestone.
Wow.
And the only reason it happened was because Steve Jobs came back to rebuild the company, to make the company what it should have been to begin with.
Right.
You have to stay with your company and make it work.
See it through.
See it through.
And make it strong, so not everybody around can just copy and do the same thing, right? Be a little, maybe find a niche, be a little unique, you know.
I guess the answer to the original question is the three attributes. The third one, which everyone needs, is money.
Yes.
I mean, you have to, when you create your business plan, you have to look at it and be very brutal with yourself.
Right.
You have to say to yourself, okay, this might be a great idea. Might be an idea that no one has ever thought of before. It might be an idea that you are so passionate about that it sleeps with you at night. At the end of the day, you have to figure out a way to make money. Right. Otherwise, the business won't last.
Right.
It might be successful for a year. It might be successful for 2 years, or not successful, but it might be in operation for that long.
Right.
It's only successful if the business makes money and continually makes money and grows.
Right.
So when you're creating your business, learning how to not only make something that you're passionate about, but passionate about to the point where you actually see a place where, and you have to be brutal with yourself.
Right.
You have to know that it's going to make money at the end of the day.
Right.
Otherwise, you'll be in a position where the business will fail. You'll take that as a failure to you.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a snowball effect.
Yeah.
So it's much more important to be brutally honest with yourself in the early stages of creating a business, so that you eventually know that business, if you can get the right elements in place, which is your responsibility, then that will be a successful business.
Right.
Now, there are certain times when those elements don't come together. Sometimes you can't get the financing. Sometimes a piece of the puzzle falls apart on you, or somebody creates a new technology which kills your idea for a technological advance. Those are all things you have no control over. You can only control certain things. Those are the issues that any business is going to face. no matter who starts it and how much money they have. If the market changes, if the technology changes, businesses, I mean, right now there's a discussion in the economic circles about how the personal computer, the thing, the PC, the one that we've relied upon for 40 years, nearly 40 years, is going to survive the new technologies. That's a pretty heavy thing if you think about it, because computers are everywhere now, and now they're saying, well, it survived the new technology, and it's scary. If you're HP or you're Dell or those kind of people, you're saying, am I going to have a business in 10 years?
Yeah.
So those are all things you have no control over. You have to find if you have a business like that, you have to find the next place, which is what Steve Jobs did.
Right.
That's what he did.
Right.
So he found, okay, I'm dying with the computer. I'm dying with the iMacs. Okay, where is my next place where I can make some money? That's what made him successful.
That's interesting. My fabulous discussion on entrepreneur state of mind with Dennis Steinmetz continues in part 2.